Welcome to this video. Yeah, this is the fourth part and final part about the London system as black, how to battle this kind of setup with bishop f4, d4, knight f3, bishop f4. And in the first three videos I had a look at setups with d5, setup with knight f6 and e6, or knight f6 and g6. Yeah, this is basically all the mainline setups that black can play, but I thought I made a quick video. I'll make a quick video about if white goes bishop f4 against the rarer moves. In fact, one of the advantages of some of those rarer moves is that the London system loses lots of power actually. So let's have a look at g6, which leads to the same as d6 in this case. So this early fianchetto, knight f3, bishop to g7, and bishop to f4. White makes the usual system moves, and black plays d6. This also shows that it's a simple transposition compared to 1 d6. So if black would start like this, for example, we have the same position. In fact, this kind of setup is rather meek for white. I mean, the London is not the most threatening opening anyway, but here black achieves a very easy game, and this is because in this setup he will get to play e5 without any kinds of problems. The knight on g8 is still at home, and e5 therefore is easy to play. And yeah, this is helpful for black in a position where the knight is already on f6. e5 would be more difficult. In my suggested setup, I actually suggested to play knight f to d7. So you could, if you want, just transpose to what I recommended in video 2, and then e5. But okay, see, you need two moves and then play e5. Here in the g6 move order, you can just do this immediately. Yeah, here white most often plays h3 because on e5 he wants to go all the way back to h2. And here black has a choice even. He can play more than one good setup. You can even think about playing f5 immediately, but I like the move queen e7 first. It strengthens the e5 point and keeps you flexible. You can continue with f5 anyway. So let's say bishop e2, and then you can go f5 or knight h6 first. Let's say f5, castles, and then knight h6. This is a possible setup. The e5 pawn is nicely protected by those pieces. The knight on h6 will go to f7. So let's just put it on the board. For example, something like this is very comfortable for black. c6 is designed to keep d5 under control. So black will play knight f7 and will have a very nice flexible structure. He was able to play f5, e5 and has a good foothold in the center. So black is fine. You can also mix move orders here. You can start out with f5. This might tempt white to play something like this. I don't know if I want this as black. Queen e7 first is probably more solid, but you could, if you want, also play stuff like knight e7 or knight to h6, which might be an idea if white wouldn't play h3. So let's say here white would play bishop e2, then e5, knight e7 could be a good idea, or knight h6, the idea being to get to f5. So let's say knight e7, and if white would castle now, then knight f5 will net black the bishop pair. This is why white usually in this position plays h3 to, oops, I mean in this position plays h3 to secure this spot on h2 where the bishop cannot be exchanged easily. Yeah, in fact, it is a good idea if you intend a King's Indian setup and you know that your opponent is going to play a bishop f4 system, a London system, it is really a good idea to gamble a bit and play maybe this move. Oops, not h6, to start with g6 and battle the London the way I just showed. The only drawback is that if white, of course, plays e4 or on move 2. So if you don't know what to do, then it's a bit of a risk to play this way. But there are some players who really always play this setup with bishop f4, and against those players I would really recommend this, because it's simply a great setup where black has no problems at all. It's very, very nice. Yeah, if you play d6 or g6, really doesn't matter much. It's all the same. What other moves are there? e6 is a possible first move, of course. If white then opts for the London, then I mean probably immediately, then you can play very much like knight f6, e6 lines, and just go knight f6 and continue with c5. It's quite the same as shown in video 3 of this series. So it's not much of a difference. If you want to go for a Dutch setup, you can do it. It's not bad really. This kind of setup is possible. Then an idea is to play with b6 or bishop d6. It's a bit weird looking, but it's not a bad idea. But let's say b6. This is perfectly playable for black. You only need to be cautious that white doesn't get to play e4 under favorable circumstances. So you must at the right time put some piece on e4. Sometimes even bishop e4 is an idea. It looks maybe weird at first sight, but it's not bad. So it's not a big problem here. Bishop f4 against e6. I mean, you have some choice how to battle this. Yeah, what other moves are there? I mean, we have the Dutch defense. Some players like to play bishop f4 against the Dutch, and it's probably on move 2 that it's most dangerous. It's less dangerous if white plays in this fashion, and we will see why. Here, I would say knight f6 fits into any system. e6, and now the question is what you want to do. You can play e6 here. If you play a Dutch with e6, then probably this is the move to go, and you would get pretty much the same position that I described before with those ideas to put a piece on e4. This is certainly alright. What you need to be cautious with is if you play a Leningrad type of setup with g6, then white in this position has got the somewhat crude looking but not at all harmless move h4. And okay, this is a very aggressive move for someone who's playing bishop f4, but this is a very specific type of bishop f4 against f5, and if black isn't careful, white can easily get a super strong attack here. I'll just show something. Let's say bishop g7, h5, knight h5, and you just sex exchange here.
Check.
Just to put it on the board. You'll see instantly that
check.
Black is in huge trouble. Got all kinds of attacking moves coming, and you really don't want that. The computer even gives this as lost for black already. It's simply not playable. So you need to be cautious. This is really dangerous. So what black can play is, oops, here you probably need to anticipate this move, and one possibility is to move h6 here to on h5 to be able to play g5, and you don't have a problem. Of course, this is a bit weakening, but okay, you're playing the Dutch defense. If you if you play the Dutch, you should be used to have a weak king side. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And let's say knight c3, and now black's idea is to play d6 and prepare e5 in the long run. Sometimes you can even play e6, queen e7, and then e5. So this is a tricky position, which I don't know. I like white a bit here, but okay, it's the Dutch. Yeah, it's always a bit double-edged and hard to assess. What I'm getting at is if you play the Dutch and someone plays bishop f4 against you, this h4 thing is a bit tricky. You need to have some idea. I think what I put on the board is not bad with d6, but it's still a tricky setup. In comparison, this knight f6, e3, this e6 stuff and b6 is easier to play as the king side is not so weak. I don't know, maybe something to consider. Even if you usually play the Leningrad, then this might be an idea. If white has played an early knight f3 like this here, and then this move, then g6 is of course less of an issue, because h4, h5 is probably not so dangerous. So this one, and then, I don't know, if you start bishop g7 or d6, this is not so dangerous in comparison, because you don't have the immediate exchange sack on h5 with the queen taking. So should be fine for black. Bishop f4 is not so bad against the Dutch, really. It's a bit of an underestimated move probably. But you need to play this h4 stuff. If you don't do this and play passively, it can easily be not great for white. So if you look at this white playing passively, and just to show what is happening, if white would play really nothing kinds of moves, h3, d6, castles, then you can set up something like this: e6, c4, queen here, and then knight to c6 and e5, or knight to d7 and e5. And we get a position which is a bit similar to the position that I showed after 1 g6. It's just that black probably loses a move in the process, as he plays e6, e5 in 2 moves, but it's still a good setup. If you get this pawn, do e5 and f5, you're very rarely worse. Of course, if you explode somewhere on the queen side, it can be, but usually if you're able to play this here, you should be fine, as you have a good center simply. So this is really not dangerous if you know what you're doing. And white plays passively. h4 is another story after g6. Yeah, what other moves are there? We are almost through with all of them. c5 maybe. Sometimes the Benoni is played. If white wants to go into London, then he probably will answer c3. And here, here it's a bit tricky. What should black play? If you want to play e6, in fact, trying to transpose into the lines I showed in the first video, the third video actually in the series, then white has 1 e4, and you can transpose to a French all of a sudden, and I'm not sure if you will want that, so you need to be cautious with e6. You also need to be cautious with the move like d5, as taking is really an option. It's simply a Slav with an extra tempo, and probably you won't get the pawn back. So bit of caution advised. Yeah, you can also not really cover c5. This kind of move just gets answered with e4, and this is a really good position for white, transposing into a c3 Sicilian, but in a really passive form. So yeah, what should black do? Probably the healthiest move is to take on d4, but this is a bit down. You can do this and transpose to the Slav exchange. Yeah, as mentioned, it is dull a bit. Yeah, so what should you do exactly? You could play knight f6 here, but you need to take into account that black that white might take. This is important, and tries to keep the pawn. but probably here it's too early to take. E6 will get the pawn back. So knight f6 is the most flexible move, which after knight f3 can lead to positions that I discussed further earlier in the third video. Or I like the move queen c7 here. This is also a good move, covering the pawn, preventing bishop f4 in very straightforward fashion. And black prepares both fianchettos, and this is rather flexible for black. I like this. So this also represents my recommendation in this move order. White plays this, I would go queen c7. Of course, e6 is a transposition after bishop f4 to the third video, but I think black should grab the chance to play queen c7 because it's a very nice dynamic move. It prevents this bishop f4, covers the pawn, so white cannot really snatch this pawn. And you are really planning to set up your pieces, so your bishops, in the most flexible and aggressive way on the long diagonals. So this looks like a fine setup. In general, the London loses lots of its appeal against the lines I showed in this video. Against g6, I think it's also not too dangerous. I think there's exactly one scenario where the London system is a really promising opening, and this is when black has played an early e6, or let's say in this position would play e6. It's not terrible, but he needs to really know what he's doing. It can easily backfire on black if he plays too passively, like this bishop e7, bishop d3, castles, knight e5, and this can easily lead to a nice attacking position with white. So black shouldn't play passively. The lines I showed with d5 all involved not playing e6 and killing your bishop for some time, but play bishop f5 at some point. And the e6 lines had this fianchetto. So this is what I'm talking about. Had this fianchetto. So black always has healthy pieces and a rather good game. Yeah, I hope those 4 videos will help you to battle this opening. It's not, of course, the most exciting and threatening opening, but it's good to know at least some decent setup, which makes sure that you get a fine position and have a chance to outplay the opponent, so that it's some fight left on the board. Of course, it's rather tedious at times, but there's not much you can do. This is rock solid. You cannot storm this kind of opening quickly. It's simply not possible. So take a look at the videos to get some idea what good setups are available for black. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.